I love to talk about this topic and I'm very passionate about it. Let's get into it. I want to take you back to a time before hybridization, before man started to dive into the genetic gene pool of the plant that we love to consume today. We're going to be talking about landrace genetics and how they play such a significant role now more than ever. Stay tuned. Yo! Welcome to Honest Flowers, where we talk everything from germination, cultivation, post-harvest, and more. And today, we're going to be talking about landraces and how they play such a significant role now more than ever. And the main reason for this is the rampant amount of hybridization that's happened in the last 20 years or so. Due to this hybridization, a lot of the cultivars that have been prioritized for yield and for bag appeal. This is because of commercial viability. And so anytime you go into dispo or even on the black market nowadays, you'll see a lot of cultivars that have been specifically chosen, whether it's phenotype or the cultivar itself that's been chosen for its high yielding properties or a bag appeal, or both a lot of the time. And unfortunately, when you're seeking out those specific characteristics, you're going to be looking over or overlooking, I should say, terpene content and specific effects that are desired. The more yield, the more profit at the end of the day for these companies, right? Especially when you're charging a premium for something as negligible as bag appeal. In my own opinion, I know that we eat with our eyes first, so whenever you go into dispo, you see that pretty flower and you're like, man, so much color, it's so frosty. But always consider the fact that there are some, not magazine worthy flower that could blow your socks off and could just be like knocking you out the park in terms of the experience that you get. And even when you crack that jar open, you're like, whoa, like I didn't expect it out of that, And now with hybridization, because there's so many modern hybrids that have been crossed over and over and over again with other cultivars and back and forth, a lot of the effects are just going to be more bland in my opinion. Like, we are testing higher in terms of like the cannabinoids and specifically THC, which we can go over another time as to why that's not important at all. But right now, in terms of like the surface level, we're missing out on a lot of those other cannabinoids that do provide more of that like euphoric effect and those certain effects that we're looking for. For example, when we're looking at a landrace like an Afghani landrace, we're going to be looking at effects that are more like pain relieving, sedative, great for insomnia, things of that nature, and very specific effects. A lot of the so-called indicas that we have in today's market, I've heard people telling me that, oh man, this one kind of hits like a sativa. I can't sleep at night, and I don't want indica anymore, and they don't realize that this whole thing between indica and sativa, it's really not something to even worry about, because it has more to do with the plant's morphology than anything else. But these categories really mean more to like when we're talking about land races than anything else, because when we're talking about like equatorial land races, they're going to be more of the sativas, and we're talking about more of like the Hindu Kush mountain, like Afghanis and stuff like that. We're going to be talking about cultivars that are more so indica and squat, broader leaf, things of that nature. And it just so happens that for the most part, those type of plants will provide more of that sedative effect, and then the equatorial sativas are going to provide more of the uplifting effect and have more of that like tropical haze kind of terp backing it. And we kind of like, I think we got lost there in terms of like, oh, that must be the effect, that's a sativa, that's the effect of the indica. It's just the morphology, and it just so happens that a lot of the time it can play out like that. But we are missing out on a lot of those effects and whatnot, those very, very specific effects and experiences that we could get from land races with the multi-layered cannabinoid content that these flowers have, that these plants have, and also the fact that they have very specific effects. They're either 100% sativa, 100% indica, and so I encourage growers to seek out these genetics. There's a ton of companies like World of Seeds, Ace Seeds. I feel like there's a few. I haven't looked 100% into it. I'd love to get some of these genetics myself. Right now, I'm actually growing out a BC Afghani in my tent. Unfortunately, it's not a full landrace, but it is a popular 90s hash plant that was introduced in BC a while back. It's crossed over to the BC Kush that's very popular in that region as well, and I'm very excited to see how that plays out. The plant currently has like a milk cake, kind of almost spiced terpene to it, so I'm very excited to see how that plays out after dry and cure. But yeah, just another reason to like, you know, at least try the hybrids that are closer to the land races or are crosses of land races. At the end of the day, you will still have an experience that's closer to that than not. But I do want to give a heads up as well for growers that want to grow complete land races in their grow tent, in their environment. There are certain terpenes and morphology and like the way that the plant grows and whatnot. It's going to be a lot different in the part of the world that it grows in. Like for example, if we're looking at equatorial tropical sativas, if you bring that over in your grow tent in Canada, like, you know, it's going to be a lot different in terms of how it grows out. You're still going to get closer to that expression versus like a hybrid if you're growing like a gelato or something, if you're looking for that specific landrace type of expression. However, it is going to be a little bit different because we have to consider environment, morphology of the plant, how it grows, what soil it's grown in, the native weather, the native climate of that region. And a lot of these factors play a huge part in terms of how these plants grow out. So don't expect like a one-to-one copy, similarly as to how we wouldn't expect that from popping seeds and pheno to pheno. But there is a little bit more variation and a little bit more of a nuance when it comes to growing land races in your grow tent, specifically if you are in like a totally different part of the world. But I'd still say try it out. It's really, really fun. I've yet to do it myself, but I am growing one that's pretty close to a landrace right now, and it has encouraged me and has kind of inspired me to want to grow out complete landraces. Fortunately, with my plant count, it's so hard to dedicate time to growing out regular seeds as much as I'd love to, and I feel like I'm missing out so much on the experience by not growing these out as of yet. I'm growing out feminized, but yeah, I'm going to be getting into growing some landraces myself, and I encourage you to try the same thing and have your family and friends try it. And I think it's great if more of the world can experience landrace genetics for their multi-layered cannabinoid content, for the experiences that you can get from it, the effects. It's really, really a different experience rather than the modern hybrids that we have nowadays. A lot of them can be very psychedelic. They can be very thought-provoking. I feel like a lot of the hybrids that we have nowadays, they kind of just slump you for more or less. They just kind of leave you in like a kind of drag, you know. That's why I like to consume a lot of even like the earlier hybrids that get closer to the land races. I love to consume those a lot more than like the more modern ones. And so yeah, I definitely encourage you to try those out. And before I yap on too much longer, I'd love to go over the history of landrace genetics and how they play a significant part from different eras like the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, how they even play a significant part today. Let's get into it. So let's start with the 60s. We're going to start with a couple cultivars that were prominent at the time, Acapulco Gold and Panama Red. Known for their psychedelic and cerebral effects, these equatorial cultivars became very popular amongst hippies, musicians, and consumers of that time period. The 60s also quickly became a staple as a time where consumption became normalized for the very first time. Moving on to the 70s and 80s, we're going to start with Thai stick, famously tied and cured to bamboo skewers and had a distinct woody and citrus zest that was uncommon for energetic sativas at the time. Durban Poison, an African landrace, also became very known for its fast flowering characteristics, even with its heirloom sativa genetics. Normally, flowering times for equatorial sativas ranged from 12 to 14 or more weeks, while the Durban finished within 7 to 9 weeks. In the mid to late 80s comes the Afghani, one of the first land races to enter the Northern American market that had a sedative, pain-relieving property and really stood out for its extremely fast flowering time and potency. And now we get to the 90s. This era was a time where we almost exclusively shifted to hybrids like Skunk No. 1, Northern Lights, and others, but we did start to see the Colombian Gold in certain circles, which is highly sought after for its sweet taste, aroma, and highly energetic effects. Me personally, I love a good landrace. Being in the time we're in now, it's so much more difficult to find classics like OG, Amnesia, Trainwreck, and others like that, but it's even more difficult to find grade A land races grown in small batch. These cultivars had a better balance of multi-layered cannabinoids, terpene expression, and overall effects, but for some reason, we've shifted over to the desserty strains that apparently hit 40% THC, but I don't buy it. If you ever get the chance to score a good batch of landrace, jump on it. It might be one of the most interesting experiences with this plant yet. Hope y'all have a good one. Peace.